Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we are really undertaking something special. We're exploring one of the most, well, profound spiritual documents out there, A Course in Miracles. But we're zeroing in specifically on the core identity, the function, and maybe the radical training laid out in the manual for teachers.
Yeah, and this is such a crucial area for anyone really engaging with a course because the manual, it sort of defines the path of implementation. You have the text for the theory,
Right.
the workbook for the daily practice, step by step, and then the manual comes along to clarify exactly who this teacher is meant to be and what their job actually
It
entails.
sounds like it goes way beyond just, standing in front of a room.
Oh, absolutely. The mission, as you can see right there in the sources, it's nothing less than a fundamental re-education, a total shift in our basic thought system.
A complete internal overhaul, then. It seems the Course is demanding this total reevaluation of who we think we are, what reality even is,
Yeah.
and the goal. It sounds almost contradictory sometimes, doesn't it? To be holy and happy at the same time.
Especially in the world we seem to live in, yes.
Yeah. We're asked to find this liberated state of mind, knowing our true worth is completely beyond question. That's a big ask.
It is a radical proposition, and the teacher's role, it's defined not by how well they maybe explain the theory, but by how completely they're actually walking this internal path. It's about embodying it.
So the sources we're looking at, the manual sections, the text citations, they give us the framework for becoming, well, a miracle worker right now.
Exactly. It's about embodying the curriculum, not just reciting it. It's very practical in that sense.
Okay, let's dive in then. Let's unpack these foundational ideas that define this unique kind of teacher. Starting right where the Course says the problem actually lies. You look around, right? The world seems full of specific problems. I mean, pandemics, politics, personal stuff, endless crises.
Always something.
But the Course seems to argue that focusing on those specifics is kind of missing the point. It's that the fundamental issue isn't the external chaos.
No, it's strictly internal. That's a hard turn for most people to make. The
Yeah.
real problem isn't out there in the world. It resides squarely in the mind, in what the Course labels the ego.
And how does it define that ego? It seems pretty specific.
It is. It's defined with, well, almost terrifying precision. It's a belief, a singular false identity that's rooted in this core idea of being separate from God, separate from our source.
Okay.
And because this ego believes it's separate, it feels like it has to survive all alone. So its basic posture towards everything, including itself, is inherently one of, well, attack.
Attack, even inwards.
Especially inwards. It manifests not just in obvious aggression, but maybe more often in constant internal judgment, self-condemnation, self-criticism, that inner voice that's never satisfied.
That sounds exhausting.
It is, because the inevitable consequence, the outcome of maintaining this attack mode, is piling up what the sources call this crushing burden of guilt.
Guilt, okay?
And the material makes this incredibly bold statement, one you really have to grapple with. Guilt is the sole cause of pain in any form.
Whoa, okay, hold on. The sole cause. So, like, physical illness, financial problems. Those aren't the real causes of pain.
According to the Course, no. They are symptoms, effects, not causes. The Course argues the ego's whole plan is basically the accumulation of guilt for this perceived sin of separation. And then,
Then we project it.
exactly, we project that guilt outwards onto the world, and we see it reflected back at us as suffering, as illness, as loss, as conflict. The ego demands punishment, and the body and the world become the screen where that punishment seems to play out.
That completely flips our usual understanding of cause and effect. I mean, we usually think, I'm sick, therefore I feel bad, not, I feel guilty, therefore I manifest sickness.
It's a total reversal,
Yeah.
which means the teacher, the person wanting to embody this, can't possibly heal the world or even their own experience of the world without first addressing the guilt in their own mind. That's the starting point.
So, if the ego is built on this foundation of guilt and separation,
Mm.
what's the alternative? What's the reality it's trying to obscure?
The counter-reality, which the Course says is reality itself, is simply that heaven, perfect unity, love, peace is the only reality. And crucially, this world of pain and separation, it never actually happened.
Never happened.
From an ultimate timeless standpoint, yeah. The belief that we could really leave God, invent a whole world apart from Him, a world where guilt and suffering are real. The Course actually calls that idea laughable when seen from the perspective of eternity.
Laughable. That's a
Yeah.
strong word for something that feels so intensely real sometimes.
It is, but the implication is profound. We are inherently free from all the consequences of our supposed mistakes, because the foundation of our being, our true self, is eternal and completely untouched by this dream of time and separation.
So the ego is basically just a fearful thought, kind of delusional system that believes it could actually divide reality and usurp God's power, and we just took it seriously.
You bought into it, yes. And the entire teaching path, especially for the teacher, is about learning to see that whole system for what it is, to recognize it.
To see the joke, maybe?
In a way. The core task, as laid out right at the start of the manual, is to recognize this entire system of division, attack, and guilt as entirely unreal. To look upon it without judgment, without fear, and just declare it null and void. Because the truth about who you are lies elsewhere.
Okay, so if the ego is based on separation and littleness, the teacher's foundation must be the opposite. It must be based on perfect union, on what did the course call it? Grandeur.
Grandeur, yes. And the sources are incredibly firm on this. The teacher's true worth, your true worth, is established by God, inherently. It has absolutely nothing to do with teaching skills or achievements or anything you accomplish in this, ephemeral world.
That's a huge relief, but also maybe hard to accept. We're so conditioned to base our worth on what we do.
Exactly. And this is where we had a crucial distinction that often trips people up.
Yeah.
The difference between grandeur and grandiosity.
Ah, okay. Let's unpack that.
Grandeur is the simple, honest truth about you. It's the magnitude of the self that God created. The sources say the truth about you is so lofty that nothing unworthy of God is worthy of you. It's just knowing you are a perfect, whole, limitless expression of love, period.
Okay, so grandeur is the reality. What's grandiosity then?
Grandiosity is the ego's pathetic imitation. It's described as a cover for despair.
A cover for despair.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's the ego trying to inflate the small self, that sense of littleness, hoping to feel important or special within the dream of separation. It's rooted in the terrified underlying belief that littleness is actually real.
So it's like trying to build yourself up within the illusion instead of recognizing the illusion itself.
Precisely. And the teacher must abandon that fear of littleness, must abandon trying to be special. The manual states that accepting our magnitude, our true grandeur, is God's direct answer to the ego's whole delusional system. It undoes the ego at its root.
I can see how accepting true grandeur would feel. Well, terrifying to the ego. Because it means letting go of all his small, cherished roles, right? The victim, the martyr, the misunderstood genius, all those identities we use.
All the ways we define ourselves within the world of separation, yes. And the commitment required to make that shift. It has to be total.
Total commitment. That sounds intense.
The manual calls it the underlying state of mind, or grace, that's needed. When the mind commits only to the truth of its own light, it knows only light. It's not about efforting. It's about commitment.
And that commitment allows the light to just shine.
It allows the teacher's own inherent radiance to automatically extend outwards and, transform the perceived darkness in other minds. You don't try to shine. You simply accept the light that you already are, and it shines all by itself. It's really an act of passive acceptance, not forceful doing.
So once that core decision is made, the process almost sounds effortless. You stop trying to manage your image, you stop trying to be something, and you just are the light.
It becomes a state of being, yes. And we're explicitly told, don't perceive yourself in different lights, sometimes holy, sometimes sinful, sometimes strong, sometimes weak. No, the instruction is clear. Know yourself in the one light, consistent, unchanging.
Okay, if the teacher accepts this inherent magnitude, this grandeur, what does that imply for their mental state, their emotional stability? The Course must have a very specific definition of sanity, right?
It does, and like many things in the Course, it's beautifully simple, if radical. Sanity is defined simply as wholeness, perfect unity.
Wholeness.
Yes. The mind of God's Son, which is you, me, everyone, is truly innocent. It's protected forever within God's mind, perfectly unified. Insanity, then, is the opposite. It's the belief that guilt is real.
The belief that you did separate.
Exactly. The conviction that you can think and will and act apart from God, apart from that wholeness. That is the split mind, the source of all conflict and distress.
This reminds me of something specific in the manual about denial. Normally, we think of denial as, pathological, hiding from reality.
Right, like pretending something bad isn't happening.
But the Course seems to use denial differently, almost as a proactive tool for the teacher.
Yes, absolutely. The proper use of denial is essential for what the Course calls the right-minded teacher. True denial isn't used to hide anything real. It's used solely to correct error.
How does that work?
The manual stresses that the teacher must actively deny any belief that error, meaning the ego's thoughts, fear, attack, guilt, can actually hurt you, that it can harm your integrity or change your fundamental identity as God created you.
So you're denying the power of the error, not its appearance.
Precisely. This denial becomes a powerful protective shield and a correction device because it affirms that the illusion of separation, the whole ego thought system, is fundamentally unreal. You're denying the reality of the dream, not denying a real threat within the dream.
Okay, so if I feel, say, anxious, I'm not denying the feeling of anxiety itself, but I'm denying the reality of the separation, the underlying thought that caused the anxiety.
Exactly that. You are denying the power of that erroneous thought to define you, to damage your true self, which remains whole and untouched. And this constant practice of denying the reality of error, of affirming inherent innocence, that leads us directly to the full awareness of atonement.
Atonement, that's another one of those words. It carries a lot of baggage, often sounds like sacrifice or punishment. What's the Course's take?
It completely redefines it. Atonement, in Course terms, is simply God's plan for undoing the belief in separation. It's the correction. It's the full awareness, a complete realization that the separation never actually occurred in reality.
Wow.
And if the separation never occurred, then the ego, which is entirely built on that perceived split, well, the ego never occurred either. It has no real foundation.
So atonement is just waking up to the fact that the nightmare wasn't real.
Essentially, yes. That realization, the recognition of total, seamless, present unity, is the single basis of sanity. It's the entire goal of the Course and the foundation upon which the teacher stands.
Okay, we've laid out the essential mindset. Recognizing our inherent magnitude, our unchanging sanity, denying the reality of error. Now, how does the teacher shift from that state of being into active function in the world?
Right. How does it translate into action or non-action? The training process is really distilled into this essential triad you mentioned: listen, learn, and do.
Listen, learn, and do. Tell us about that.
It outlines the path of surrender, really. First, the teacher needs to be ready to listen. That's a voluntary state, an opening of the mind, a willingness to hear a different voice.
Okay, willing to listen.
Second, they must be willing to learn. Again, voluntary. This means accepting the Holy Spirit's lessons even when they contradict everything the ego believes.
Ready to listen, willing to learn. And the third?
Third, they become able to do. And notice the shift here. This part is described as involuntary. It refers to the application of miracles.
Involuntary. That's fascinating. Why must the doing part, the actual miracle working, be involuntary or, as the Course puts it, Christ-controlled?
Well, think about it. If the miracle, the act of correction, were controlled by our individual, fragmented, often self-serving will,
It could get misused.
totally, it would inevitably get tangled up with ego desires, wanting to be special, wanting recognition, maybe even wanting to punish someone subtly. It could generate more fear or leave the doer feeling depleted.
Right, that feeling of burnout some helpers experience.
Exactly. But miracles, true miracles, must be under Christ's control, under the Holy Spirit's direction, to ensure they are universally helpful. And critically, so they replenish the doer just as much as the receiver. The Course notes that true miracles always increase strength in both.
So if I try to force a miracle out of my own ego, maybe to prove how spiritual I am or get attention, I'll likely feel drained afterwards. That's a sign it wasn't a true guided miracle.
That's a very good indicator, yes. It would produce a sense of scarcity or effort instead of effortless abundance and shared gain. And this is why the voluntary part, the listening and learning, requires perhaps the most significant decision a student of the Course can make: resigning as your own teacher.
Wow. Resigning as your own teacher. That sounds simultaneously terrifying and maybe liberating.
Both. It's the ultimate act of humility, you could say. The teacher has to willingly renounce the role of being the guardian of their own thought system, the system built by the ego, and open it up completely to the Holy Spirit's guidance.
Letting go of the controls.
Completely. But the manual assures us this isn't meant to be depressing or feel like failure. It's simply an honest appraisal. It's looking clearly and saying, you know what? My self-taught curriculum, the one based on separation, guilt, and fear, it hasn't worked. It's led to pain and confusion. I'm ready to accept a better way. And that honest recognition, it says, leads straight to joy. #B. Accepting guidance and rejecting fear. So once the teacher makes that resignation, who do they rely on? They rely solely on the Holy Spirit. And we need to understand the Holy Spirit not just as some, abstract theological concept,
but as a practical guide.
Exactly. As the healer, the comforter, the guide. The indispensable communication link that bridges the gap between God and his seemingly separated sons. It's the voice for God within our own mind.
And the guidance seems very personalized. The sources mention the Holy Spirit will answer every specific problem as long as you believe problems are specific. It meets us where we are.
That's the incredible wisdom and gentleness of it. It works within the confines of our perceived reality, our belief in specific issues, health worries, money problems, relationship conflicts, to gently lead us out of them.
How does it do that?
It answers the specific question, but the content of the answer always points back towards the singular underlying truth, the atonement, the fact that separation isn't real. It uses the specifics to teach the universal.
That makes sense. And this is probably why the instruction is given. Never perform a miracle without asking the Holy Spirit if you should.
Yes. That simple act of checking in, asking, is this mine to do? Is this the right time or form? It spares you from that ego-driven exhaustion we talked about. It ensures the miracle remains purely corrective, guided, and beneficial for everyone involved.
Okay, this brings us back to fear. If this guidance is always available, how does the teacher handle fear when it inevitably pops up? The material warns against asking for release from fear directly. Why is that?
This is a point of real mental discipline. It's subtle but crucial. If you ask, please take this fear away, you're implicitly saying that fear is some external powerful force that has overcome you and that it's not your responsibility to correct the thought causing it.
You're making the fear real and powerful by asking for it to be removed by an outside agent.
Exactly. You're buying right into the ego's premise that you're a victim of forces beyond your control. Instead, the Course advises you ask for help with the conditions, the thoughts, the beliefs, the situation in your mind that brought the fear about.
So look at the cause, not the symptom.
Right, because fear, according to the text, arises from a split will. It happens when one part of your mind knows the truth, which is always peaceful, reflecting Christ's will for you, and another part is trying to achieve a separate, conflicting, ego-based goal. You're trying to serve two masters.
So the fear isn't the core problem. The split in my intention or my desire is the problem.
Precisely. The teacher's job is to recognize, okay, I'm feeling fear. This means I must be trying to do something I don't really will because I'm believing in two opposing goals. The correction then requires the willingness of the separated part of the mind to align with the unified will of the Holy Spirit.
And when you ask for help with that alignment,
The moment you sincerely ask the Holy Spirit to help you harmonize your will to see the situation differently, the condition that produces the fear dissolves. The cause is removed. And then the symptom, the feeling of fear itself, simply vanishes. It has no cause to sustain it anymore.
so once the mind starts to unify under this guidance, the teacher's curriculum becomes, well, beautifully simple, singular even. Teach only one lesson, love.
That's it. And the reason for this singular focus is incredibly pragmatic, actually. It's because what you teach, you inevitably strengthen in yourself.
The teacher learns the most.
Always. Teaching, in the Course's sense, is therapy because it means the sharing of ideas, the extension of thoughts. And there's this awareness that to share an idea is to reinforce it, to cement it in your own mind.
So if I teach judgment, I'm actually just strengthening judgment and guilt within myself.
Without a doubt, if you teach attack, you strengthen fear in yourself. But if you consistently choose to teach, to extend, only love, forgiveness, acceptance, seeing innocence, you strengthen your own immunity to fear, you build your own peace.
Therefore, the teacher must strive to be wholly helpful.
Wholly helpful and therefore wholly harmless. That's a key phrase, no exceptions. Because any exclusion, any judgment harms the teacher first.
And this commitment, this dedication to sharing only love, it somehow places the teacher in charge of the sonship. What does sonship mean here?
The sonship is the Course's term for the collective Christ. All the seemingly separated children of God, all of us, consider as one unified being. We appear fragmented in the dream, but in reality, we are one.
Okay.
The teacher's devotion to their brothers and sisters, seeing only the Christ in them, recognizes this inherent unity, and their function, their purpose, is only fulfilled, only rendered complete, to the extent that this recognition, this love, can be shared universally without leaving anyone out.
And the primary way this sharing happens is through miracles, which are described as supplying a lack, filling a perceived need. How must these miracles be given?
This is really key. They must be given impersonally.
To personally, meaning?
Meaning the miracle worker disregards all the differences the ego makes real. Whether the recipient appears to be a friend or a foe, deserving or undeserving, close or distant, it doesn't matter. The miracle, the extension of love or forgiveness, is offered equally to all.
Because making distinctions would be falling back into judgment.
Exactly. If you try to direct the miracle based on specific personal attributes or your relationship history, I'll help this person but not that one, you violate the principle of universal equality. You slip right back into the ego's trap of special love or special hate.
So miracles are just the natural overflow of the light of forgiveness that the teacher has accepted for themselves.
Beautifully put. It's just that accepted light shining away the perceived darkness in everyone, equally and automatically.
Let's dig into the mechanics of healing a bit more. The Course draws this sharp line between perception and knowledge. Knowledge is timeless, comes from within, from the altar. Perception is specific, involves the body, happens in time. And healing, it says, is the correction of misperception.
That's absolutely vital. Healing isn't about fixing a broken world or a broken body in any ultimate sense. It's about correcting the way we are seeing it. The miracle is the device for that perception correction.
And it works regardless of the error.
Yes, it's effective quite apart from the degree or the direction of the error. It doesn't matter how big the perceived problem looks, whether it seems like a small annoyance or a life-threatening catastrophe. The correction offered by the miracle, the shift from fear to love, is total and applies equally.
Okay, and what about this idea that miracles abolish time by collapsing it? How does that work? That sounds very sci-fi.
Yeah, it does a bit. But think of time, from the Course's perspective, primarily as a learning device. The ego structures time to make lessons seem painful, drawn out, difficult, requiring years of suffering before we grasp a simple truth.
We've definitely experienced that.
Right. The miracle, by offering an instant correction in perception, shifting you from fear to love, from grievance to forgiveness, right now collapses that painful learning interval. It bypasses the need for lengthy struggle.
So it speeds up the learning process.
Dramatically. You achieve in a holy instant, a moment of choosing differently, what might otherwise seem to take decades of painstaking effort and suffering. It's described as a shift in the speed of learning, allowing the mind to grasp the necessary lesson now rather than later.
Now, if the miracle worker, the teacher, is supposed to embody this corrected perception, there must be a real danger of slipping back, of the ego trying to co-opt the process. The Course warns about the unhealed healer.
Yes, that's a very stark and important warning. It points to the subtle ways the ego can get involved. An unhealed healer, it says, simply doesn't understand their own vocation. They haven't sufficiently healed their own mind first.
So what happens?
If their ego is still running the show, even subtly, they'll inevitably seek to gain something for themselves through the healing, maybe status, money, validation, a feeling of being special or powerful.
They're operating from lack, trying to get something.
Exactly. And if you're operating from lack, you cannot truly share or correct perception effectively. You're reinforcing separation, not undoing it. Healing, the Course insists, isn't mysterious. It's not dependent on special psychic gifts or complex rituals. It happens simply when the teacher understands the principles, understands that only love is real, because light is understanding.
So if the mind accepts the light of truth, the healing just extends naturally.
Automatically. It's not something you do to another person. It's something that flows through you when your own mind is aligned with truth. Tag B, the holy relationship and forgiveness.
Okay, the real testing ground, the laboratory for all this, seems to be our relationships, how we deal with our brothers, as the Course calls everyone. How does the Holy Spirit guide the teacher to relate to others, it seems? Almost radically positive, except only loving thoughts in them.
It is radical. It's a principle of radical reinterpretation. The guidance is, accept only the loving thoughts and intentions in others as real. Everything else, every apparent act of attack, every harsh word, every sign of fear, must be regarded only as an appeal for help, a call for love.
Only as a call for love, even when someone is really laying into you.
Even then, especially then, perhaps. The text clarifies this beautifully. Fear is a call for love. It arises from an unconscious recognition of the love that the separated mind has denied itself and believes it lacks. So the attack isn't personal, it's a symptom of inner pain.
Wow. So if someone is criticizing me or angry with me, the teacher's perspective isn't to defend or counterattack, but to try and see beyond the mask of that attack to the underlying pain of fear that's crying out for love.
Precisely that. That's the commitment. And this is true forgiveness, as the Course defines it. To forgive is to overlook error, to look beyond it from the very beginning, thereby keeping the error unreal in your own mind.
So you don't make the error real first and then try to forgive it.
No, because the moment you accept a brother's errors or attack as real, as truly defining them or you are accepting separation as real, and therefore you are actually attacking yourself, reinforcing guilt in your own mind.
That's a powerful motivation for forgiveness. It's actually self-preservation in the truest sense.
It's the deepest form of self-love, yes, and it preserves your peace.
Yeah.
Correction, the Course says, is of God. It belongs to the Holy Spirit. The teacher should not take on his function of judging or deciding who needs correction or punishment. Our function is simply to look beyond all errors from the start.
And this commitment, this practice, is what transforms an ordinary relationship into a holy relationship.
Yes, a relationship that might have been undertaken for unholy, ego-based purposes, special love, where there's exclusivity, dependency, conditions, or special hate, where there's ongoing conflict and grievance.
Those suddenly get a new goal.
Suddenly, holiness, shared healing, becoming a joint demonstration of forgiveness becomes the goal. And the sources are quite honest, that transition can feel, well, precarious at first, maybe disorganized.
Why precarious?
Because when two people agree to really look at their relationship from this new perspective, aiming for holiness, they are often appalled by the extent of the unholy purposes they had unconsciously woven into it before. All the old rules, expectations, and defenses start to collapse.
It shakes the foundation.
It does. But the Course insists only this kind of radical shift, this complete change of mind about what the whole relationship is for, can bring about true, lasting peace and allow the relationship to become a source of extension and joy rather than pain and limitation. Their joined purpose then becomes limitless, reaching out to heal the entire sonship. #C, the body, as a means of communication.
We can't really talk about the teacher's function without addressing the body. The ego seems completely identified with it, right? I am this body. But the Course offers a radical redefinition.
Completely radical. Under the Holy Spirit's guidance, the body has only one purpose: to be used as a means of communication and extension. That's it.
Just communication.
Just communication. It's inherently neutral. It's not for attack, it's not for imposing limits, and it's certainly not for pursuing those fleeting special pleasures that the ego uses, which often lead straight back to guilt.
Does it mention things like sexuality specifically?
It does. It tends to view what we call sexuality as something the ego often distorts into a kind of displacement outward, a confused attempt to find union or completion with something or someone outside the self instead of recognizing the perfect wholeness already within. The body's true purpose is simply to convey the message of unity, of shared interest, of harmlessness.
So health, in this context, it isn't about having a perfect physique or running a marathon necessarily.
Not primarily, no. Health is defined as united purpose. If the body is brought under the mind's single unified purpose, which is the communication of love and the undoing of separation, then the body naturally becomes whole and functional for that purpose. It serves the mind's goal.
And the ultimate purpose is?
The ultimate purpose of the body, believe it or not, is to render itself unnecessary.
To make itself obsolete.
Exactly. Once the mind fully understands that it is not limited by the body, that its reality is boundless spirit, the body simply ceases to have a central function. It's no longer perceived as the locus of identity or value.
And just the simple act of thinking of ourselves as a body is diminishing our true self.
The Course says it's profoundly belittling. When a child of God thinks of himself as only a body, he's taking his infinite, glorious self and seeing it as small, vulnerable, and temporary. And inevitably, he sees his brothers and sisters as similarly belittled, which cuts him off from recognizing the Christ in them, and thus cuts him off from salvation, from waking up.
There's that quote about the body being just a tiny fence.
Yes, a tiny fence around a little part of a glorious and completely limitless idea. A beautiful image. The teacher's function is to consistently practice looking past that tiny fence in themselves and in everyone they meet, and seeing the limitless radiance of the Christ mind shining through. Accepting their holiness is accepting your own.
So we started this whole deep dive talking about the goal, abolishing fear, so that knowledge, that direct awareness of reality, can happen. What does arriving at that destination actually feel like for the teacher, according to the Course?
Well, one key description is that it feels natural, easy even, which sounds counterintuitive given how much effort we often put into spiritual practice.
Easier than living in the world.
That's exactly what it says. Following the Holy Spirit is described as the easiest thing in the world because it's entirely in accord with our true nature. It's the world's way, the ego's way of constant striving, defending, attacking, getting. That's what's unnatural and exhausting.
So peace comes from surrender.
Peace abides in every mind that quietly accepts God's simple plan for atonement, for correction, and willingly relinquishes its own complicated, fearful, often chaotic plans for salvation, just letting go of trying to figure it all out yourself.
It requires giving up the ego's addiction to struggle, maybe,
Yeah.
to making things difficult.
Very much so. The struggle is how the ego keeps the illusion feeling real and important. The teacher simply learns to accept the ease, the flow, the gentle guidance of the Holy Spirit. And this continued acceptance, this practice, leads to that final beautiful step described in the text, the fusing of perception into knowledge.
How does that happen? Perception and knowledge seem so distinct earlier.
They are distinct while learning is still needed, but the Holy Spirit gently leads the learner, the teacher, all the way to Christ, to the altar within their own mind. And at that point, perception has become so consistently holy, it's only seeing innocence, only seeing calls for love, only reflecting unity that its transfer to holiness, its merging into direct knowledge, is described as merely its natural next extension.
Like the boundary just dissolves because perception has become so pure.
Exactly. You have seen the truth reflected in the dream so clearly and consistently that you simply step out of the dream altogether and into reality. Hashtag into reality. Hashtag be the Great Awakening in the real world. And the process of that final transition, it's described quite beautifully as moving through stages of waking up. The teacher will first dream of peace.
Dream of peace.
Yeah, experience a world where forgiveness reigns, where conflict is absent, that's still within a dream context. And then, from that peaceful dream, they will awaken to peace itself, to reality.
And this peaceful dream state, is that what the Course calls the real world?
Yes, the real world isn't heaven, but it's the state that immediately precedes it. It's the world of happy dreams, the world fully corrected by the Holy Spirit, where perception is consistently loving and unified.
So it's the final purified perception, where everything is forgiven, everything looks perfect, but maybe still within the context of form and time, just before the final step.
Precisely. It's described as the final classroom, a state that allows the learner to transition easily and naturally into full awakening, like stepping out of a mist into brilliant sunlight. No trauma, no shock, just gentle release.
And once the teacher reaches this state, or is embodying it, what is their final function?
Their final magnificent function is simply this: to teach the kingdom to the kingdom.
Teach the kingdom to the kingdom. What does that mean?
It means demonstrating, embodying, and extending the fact of perfect unity and wholeness. The text says there are no exceptions in this lesson because the lack of exceptions is the lesson. The teacher shows that total, unqualified love and acceptance are possible and are, in fact, the only reality.
So every son, every part of sonship who returns to the kingdom, to this awareness, with this lesson fully learned, they heal everyone.
They heal the entire sonship, yes, because in reality there is only one son. Their return restores the awareness of perfect integration for the whole. It means the entire illusion of separation is undone, not just for that one individual teacher, but for the collective mind we all share.
That's mind-blowing.
The ultimate realization is simply this: you cannot be, and you never have been, anywhere except safe within the mind of God. The teacher's final role is just to accept this truth completely and extend it without any exceptions, demonstrating through their perfect harmlessness and unwavering peace that their brothers cannot hurt them and cannot be hurt. This is the light that shines away the past entirely and makes room for the awareness of God's eternal presence right now. Hashtag outro.
Wow. What a profound and, incredibly demanding shift in perspective the Manual for Teachers lays out. It really asks for everything. If we were to distill the teacher's core identity right down, it seems to come back to accepting, truly accepting you are the light of the world. And that rest, true peace, it doesn't come from escaping the world through sleep or withdrawal, but actually from waking up within it and consistently sharing that decision for God, for love.
That's it. You claim your power, your magnitude, when you become wholly vigilant for God and his kingdom, as the text puts it. Vigilant for truth, vigilant against the ego's illusions. And it's important to remember, the decision to become a teacher of God, as the manual defines it, it's exactly the same decision as choosing to become a happy learner. They are synonymous.
Happy learner. I like that.
Because the process ultimately should feel effortless in a deep way. You're just returning your mind to God, to reality, as he created it, whole, innocent, loving. He's only asking you to accept what he already gave you, your love, your sanity, knowing that accepting and giving this will heal you completely.
Sanity's wholeness.
Sanity's wholeness, and the sanity of your brothers is yours. By accepting their innocence, seeing past their errors, you accept your own, and that's the only real function there is.
So, okay,
Yeah.
if your worth as a listener was established by God, completely beyond dispute,
Hmm.
if you are fundamentally this perfect expression of magnitude and light, what single unworthy thought, what specific belief about yourself or someone else are you still holding on to right now? What little piece of darkness are you cherishing that keeps you from realizing your function, your light, today?
And just remember, whatever that thought is, it's merely an appeal for help, waiting for your loving reinterpretation.
I likes to reflect on there. Until next time, keep learning.